Spring has finally sprung around here, which means it is poetry season. April is National Poetry Month, so today I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks for you to get poetry working in your classroom all through the month of April. Let's get started. April is a wonderful time of year to bring poetry back into your classroom. Everything is blooming and fresh. Our kiddos can do amazing things for us since they've been with us since the fall. It's almost testing season. All three great reasons to bring those poetry concepts back to life in your classroom all through the month of April. One of my first tips for you today is one that might seem obvious, but it's so important. You want to get your students reading and interacting with poems all through the month of April. From what I've seen, people either love poetry or they hate teaching poetry. So using these activities in new and exciting ways in your classroom might make you a poetry lover too. My first tip to make sure your students are working with great poems is to give them great poems. There are so many amazing, new, current, exciting poets out there who are actively creating poetry collections for children. And I think it's so important that we have those available in our classrooms. I brought some of my favorites today with suggestions of ways you can use them. I love Nikki Grimes. I had to go dig out 2 of hers from my classroom library. Oh Brother is a beautiful collection of poems about step siblings as they're navigating their new relationship. I love this because so many of my students can see themselves in this text. Another fantastic work by Nikki Grimes is Meet Denitra Brown. These poems have the best rhythm. I love to use these when I'm teaching rhythm and meter to my 3rd graders. Again, so many of my students can see themselves in these poems, in her interactions with her best friend, the strong women in her life. I love Meet Denitra Brown. Another favorite, possibly my favorite, A Funeral in the Bathroom by Kelly Dacos. These poems are hilarious, and I love to just give them to my kids, and they'll start reading, and they're like, this one's about a toilet. I'm like, I know, guess what? The next one is also about a toilet. These are hilarious, and they all focus on the things that happen in an elementary school bathroom. I think a lot of times in teaching poetry, we can get kind of stuck in those same old poems or using those nursery rhymes that students are familiar with. I think it's really important, especially celebrating National Poetry Month, that you're getting new, fresh, exciting, and relevant poems into the hands of your students. So whether you're making a run to Barnes & Noble, heading to Amazon, or checking out a beautiful collection from the library, get poems in your students' hands. My next suggestion for you is one that I think is so cool because it makes poems and poets that much more real for your students. So poets.org is an amazing resource. Not only do they have a huge database of free use poems, so whenever I'm pulling poems for students, I love to go there first. They also have something called Poem of the Day. So you can sign up for an email and it'll send you a poem of the day right to your email. On the website, I also love that they have the poet reading the poem. I believe that poems are meant to be shared out loud. They truly are an oral art form. So I love to share those Poem of the Day being read aloud to students. They can hear the author reading their work the way they intended for it to be heard. Again, it's that great example of rhyme and meter and the rhythm that we find in our poems. And it's so cool for them to see, wow, an actual human that I can hear wrote this poem. While some of them are not super early elementary friendly, there are some great options. So don't sleep on poet.org and their beautiful resources under Poem of the Day. Another opportunity for your students to interact with poems all through the month of April all evolves around the creation. Now we know it can be really challenging for our students to create their own poems from scratch. But I found if you're giving students the structure, maybe we're doing a diamante poem, you teach the structure of a haiku and give them the specific steps to follow, students can be really successful in the art of writing a poem. Also, I think it's important to remember that creating within poetry doesn't have to be actually writing a poem. Students could be creating in response to a poem. I love to give students the opportunity to illustrate poems, so give them one that they've really enjoyed from class, maybe one of those poems of the day or one that you've shared from a collection of poems, and let them then add those illustrations. Also, take it outside. We know this weather is beautiful right now. Sidewalk chalk. All around my school, we have sidewalks that students use, staff uses, and parents can use. Guardians coming in and out of the building can see these areas of our school. I give my students little short poems. Haikus are normally really short and sweet, very concise, easy for students to write. Give them the opportunity to decorate those areas around your school with poetry. Imagine how nice it would be to get out of your car in the morning and see a beautiful poem about maybe the environment, how the weather is changing, animals coming out of hibernation, and students love it. Not to mention the time you also get to spend outside while your students are writing their poems on the ground. Bringing poetry into your classroom in April is so much fun, and I think it's a great opportunity to either introduce or review all of the elements under poetry that are expected in your state standards. I personally teach my poetry unit in the fall, so I love to use April as an opportunity to review those things. It's amazing, we can spend 3 weeks on similes and then all of a sudden April hits and no one remembers what a simile is. Use this month as an opportunity to review. We know that testing is coming up soon. Students are going to be seeing those terms again soon, so use this month as an opportunity to bring that review back into your classroom. I do have a resource for you today. It is a great one and it is a freebie. Today's freebie is a poetry unit. We have 2 options. We have a 3rd grade and a 2nd grade unit, and they're designed to be taught between 1 to 2 weeks, so a great amount of content for you. Now, since it is a unit, you're getting all of the resources. You get the PowerPoints, the notebook resources, the centers, and different things for students to interact with throughout the unit. Both 2nd and 3rd grade are great options. I have them both and I pull from them both to support both my lower readers and my students who are working on grade level. These are great ways to review those skills, get that vocabulary back into your classroom, and you might want to download them now and then save them for your full-blown poetry instruction next year. If you haven't taught poetry yet, talk about a perfect time of year to do it. There are so many great resources out there. Because it is National Poetry Month, let's bring poetry to our students and help create that love of poetry and celebrate it all month long. If you aren't already a poetry lover, I hope you are at least excited to find some ways to incorporate poetry into your classroom all through the month of April to celebrate National Poetry Month. If you want those freebies, the 3rd grade and 2nd grade poetry units, they are linked up in the cards and down in the description box. And we want to hear from you down in the comments. Share those ideas with us. How are you going to be celebrating National Poetry Month? Even just talking about this, I already have more ideas for more ways I could use this in my classroom. We have even more suggestions from the team over on the blog as well. And as always, we hope you guys have a not so wimpy day. Bye!